All right. I think this thing, yeah, there it is. All right. How many of y'all won the day today or this week? Anybody win the day? I won the day. Or I tried to win the day until life happened. And then life happened, and uh, I let my pride. That's what we're going to be talking about today. When I wrote this, I wrote this yesterday, and then today. It's funny how that works, right? You study pride and how we're not to be prideful people. We're not to let our pride get in the way. And well, mine did today, and I was like, okay, Lord, thank you for correcting that. So, um, we're in Isaiah chapter 23. Isaiah chapter 23. We're going to be talking about Tyre today. And about the article against Tyre and what their downfall was, and just to kind of recap the articles of God here against these different cities, and remember why he's doing the cities. He's doing these cities as a way to teach, to let people know, because if it happened in Babylon, everybody else would hear about it and they would know. And as Isaiah was writing this to God's chosen people, he was doing it so that they could learn a lesson. One of the I was reminded of this today at baseball practice. We were in the batting cage, right? And I was dealing with one of our guys on hitting, and he's kind of been in a slump, and he's not hitting real good, and so I was telling him, hey, look, this is what you're doing wrong. So I'm just going to get a little baseball technical on you. So if you don't know anything about baseball, just hang in. I'll try to explain it the best I can. All right. So what he's doing is he starts out right here. All right. And we call it, when the pitcher gets ready to release the ball, we want to get in a good A. All right. And what a good A is we want to get balanced. We want separation, right? So our front foot's down, our hands are separated from our body. So when the ball comes to us, then we can go straight to the ball with the bat. You take the knob of the ball, or knob of the bat to the ball, right? And so I'm sitting there, I tell him, I show him, and I tell him again. All right? That's the way that I learn. Somebody's got to tell me once, you got to show me, and then you got to tell me again. So when I teaching, coaching baseball, that's the way I do. So I showed him, I told him, I showed him, I told him again, and then I said, all right, get in the cage. Let's see you do it. He gets in the cage. He goes from here, and he stays here. And when he goes to swing, his hands drop. So what does that do? That brings the bat up here. And I said, son, no. You watch me again. So I tell him, I show him, I tell him, do it again. Still can't do it, right? So then I got the bright idea, you know what? Maybe he needs to see. Maybe he needs to see himself. So I get my phone out and I record him. And I show him, I tell him, I show him, and tell him again. He gets back up in there and he still didn't do it. Right. So we did it. We went through that rotation over and over again until finally he got to his A, he got hand separation, and now he's got it going. He's got everything going right. It's the same thing that Isaiah is trying to do here. All right. He's showing, he's telling, He's letting them know so that they can learn, right? And it's for us, right? Because even though he's writing this to God's people in that day, he still has it for us to learn today. Because guess what? Idolatry still exists today. There's many people, even in the church, that have idols. And remember, what is an idol? An idol is anything that you put before God. Right? So it could be anything that you worship or that you put in place of your worship of God. All right. So that was one of the big ones that a lot of the cities that he's talking about has. Even in Tyre, we'll see that there were still idols there, but their biggest one was pride. Right? Nobody in here deals with pride, right? We're not prideful people. No. Sometimes we do let our pride get in the way. And guess what? Pride can be an idol as well. All right? Pride can be an idol as well. If there's only two people that really knew me when I was a kid in this church, and they could probably tell you that man, I had some pride. You know, I was a very prideful kid. And I still had that tendency. I'm not saying that I mastered it. All right. I'm not saying I mastered it at all. I still battle with that. And so how do we battle that? And I think that we can learn that lesson here in chapter 23 of Isaiah. So let's read it, and then we'll try to break it down for you. It says, an article against Tyre, well, ships of Tarshish, for your heaven has been destroyed. Word has reached them from the land of Cyprus. Mourn, inhabitants of the coastland, your merchants of Sidon, your agents have crossed the sea. On many waters, Tyre's revenue was the grain from Shahor, the harvest of the Nile. She was the merchant among the nations. Be ashamed, Sidon, the stronghold of the sea, for the sea has spoken. It had not been in labor or given birth. I have not raised young men or brought up young women. When the news reach Egypt, they will be in anguish over the news about Tyre. Cross over to Tarshish, Wells, inhabitants of the coastland. Is this your jubilant city, whose origins was in ancient times, whose feet have taken her to settle far away, who planned this against Tyre, the bestower of crowns, whose traders are princes, whose merchants are the honored ones of the earth? The Lord of hosts has planned it to desecrate all its glorious beauty, to disgrace all the honored ones of the earth. Overflow your lands like the Nile, daughters of Tarshish. There is no longer anything to restrain you. He stretched out his hands over the sea. He made kingdoms tremble. The Lord has commanded that the Canaanites' fortress be destroyed. He said, you will not rejoice anymore, ravishing young women, daughters of Sidon. Get up and cross over to Cyprus. Even there you will have no rest. Look at the lands of Chaldeans, a people who no longer exist. Assyria destined it. The desert creatures. They set up the siege towers. They stripped its palace. They made it a ruin. Well, ships of Tarshish, because your fortress is destroyed. On that day, Tyre will be forgiven for 70 years, the lifespan of one king. At the end of 70 years, what the song says about the prostitutes will happen to Tyre. Pick up your lyre, stroll through the city, prostitutes forgotten by men. Play skillful, sing many a song, and you will be thought of again. And at the end of the 70 years, the Lord will restore Tyre, and she will go back into the business, prostituting herself with all the kingdoms of the world on the face of the earth. But her profits and the wages will be dedicated to the Lord. They will not be stored or saved, for her prophet will go to those who live in the Lord's presence to provide them with ample food and sacred clothing. So there we have that's to verse 23. And I love the main scripture text is really, or the key verse of this is really verses 8 and 9 of chapter 23, because that's where it says who did it, right? Because when you look at this, especially in this day and time, when you think of Tyre, think of a coastal land, right? Think of this coastal land, and Tyre was a major port city. Like they had the market on shipping out goods all across the world as they knew it there. So they had the best, right? They had many trade agreements with many different places that they would go, and they would take all the merchants and all that stuff, and they would make sure that they got to each destination. So really each city had to use Tyre. They used them, and so they were a well-off city, if you will, or well-off state that they had. But their problem was they were prideful people. They were prideful people, and so really they didn't have as many enemies as most cities or most prominent cities or states. But yet here it's saying in verse 9, it talks about this was what the Lord did, right? And it's not like Babylon. Yes, Babylon was defeated and they were conquered, but the Lord used somebody to do that. Here it's saying that the Lord was the reason. If you look at verse 9, it says the Lord of hosts planned it. All right? The Lord of hosts planned it. So that lets us know that this was the Lord's doing, that He was the one who set this up, who set it in motion, that He was in control of it to desecrate all the glorious beauty. Now, why do you think that it has in there glorious beauty? What does pride do for us? Nobody wants to answer because they think, well, if I give this answer, they're going to know that I'm prideful. But what does pride do? When we take pride in something, all right? When we take pride in something, what do we usually do? We keep it up. We boast about it, right? I mean, how many times have you gone fishing and you caught the biggest fish, or you won the day? And Charles is not here to talk about like that. But how many times, man? I was talking to, who was that? There was a little kid I was talking to the other day about fishing and going fishing. And he was sitting there, and I said, have you gone fishing yet? He said, yeah, I went fishing. I can't remember. It was a little bitty kid. Yeah, I went fishing. I said, what, really? What'd you catch? And he said, man, I caught a bunch of fishes. I said, really? I said, how big was it? He said, oh, it was about this. No, it wasn't that big. It wasn't that big. It was about this. I said, man, you caught a fish that big? That's bigger than you, son. He said, well, maybe it was this big. Right? And I know that's funny, and we joke about it, and we talk about that and say that we would, but when pride sets into our lives, then it all becomes about us, right? When we talk about pride, we think, hey, you know what? I did this, or the reason it is because of this is because of me. I'm the one. Right? And that's what Tyre was doing. They were the ones that have set up the merchants. They were the ones that got to go into the big wigs and to the prince of the cities and the states, and they were the ones who got the glory. But that wasn't the case. Because in reality, there's nothing that we can do without God. Because God is always in control. God is always in control of every situation that we may face. God is in control. And so, in reality, the only thing that we can boast about in our lives is what God has done in our lives. I was watching March Madness while I was over at Mama's the other night. And I was watching, there's this team that made it to the Sweet 16. Never heard of this team before. St. Pete's or St. Peter's. Never heard of them. Like when they brought, when I saw them playing, I thought, that's got to be a D2 or a D3 school. How are they playing, a Division I in the Division I tournament? Never heard of this team. Right? But as I started watching them, and then I found their coach, and I started listening to the coach. Man, I was very impressed with the way they played basketball and the unselfishness of the players, even the ones that were on the bench. The unselfishness that they exhibited while they were playing. And the coach said this. He says, as proud as I am of my guys, I know that it's not just one guy. I know that it's not just my ability to coach. And I was thinking, man, there we go. That's the way we need to live our lives. We need to live our lives in such a way that when we think about something that good happens or something good happens through us, it's not just me. It's not just me. It's what God is doing through me. How can we do that with the church? How do you think we could... Well, let me ask you this. Do you think a church can be prideful? What are some examples of pride in the church? Big buildings. What else? I'm fixing to really step in it. Because I got one. And some people may not like this one. What else before I give mine? You took mine. Because I was supposed to walk back to the back of the church and grab the number board off the back of the church back there and show. I mean, in a way, that's us being prideful. Hey, look, this is what we're doing. But you know what? He left 99 for one. Right? He had numbers there. He had 99, but there was still one that he went back for. Pride can get a church in trouble when it starts dealing with numbers. When we're so focused on, well, we got to have this many at Sunday school, we got to have this many in church service, or we have to have this much money. Because what do we think? Then we start thinking, hey, it's about us. What happens when we're prideful? What happens? Well, in this case, It says, who planned this? We'll go back to verse 8. It says, who planned this against Tyre, the bestower of the crowns, who traded, or princes, who merchants are the honored ones of the earth. The Lord of hosts planned it to desecrate all its glory and beauty, to disgrace all the honored ones of the earth. He tears it down. He tears it down. Another way that we could put this, he humbles us. How many of y'all ever been humbled before? Was it fun? Did you feel disgraced, dishonored? I got another story for you. When I joined the military, one of the things that they made us do was they made us go to what they call pre-BMT. All right, BMT stands for Basic Military Training. All right, that's boot camp. Right? So pre-boot camp, they told us one Saturday, hey, you had to be at the base at 5 o'clock. You were going to catch a plane. They were going to send you down to the coast, and it was going to be like a mini version of boot camp. Right? So we get down there, and we go through that mini boot camp. Well, in high school, I was in ROTC, JROTC. Junior ROTC is what they called it in high school. And so I already knew how to march, right? I already knew how to march. I already knew how to salute. I already knew how to come to attention when he says attention. And I knew all that stuff. So I was with this group of guys. One of them was my college roommate. And the other one we met at pre-boot camp, and we went to boot camp together and became great friends. But we were down at the coast, and I remember they picked us up from the airplane on the bus. That was my first time to ever fly, so I was nervous as a wet cat, right? And I got off the plane, got on the bus. I was finally on 4 wheels. I wasn't flying, so I kind of relaxed a little bit. And we got there. They pulled the bus up. Well, this guy comes on there, and he starts screaming at us and hollering at us and calling us all these names to get off his bus. And he gave us the instructions, when you get off the bus, go and stand at attention. Well, right then I said, oh, I know what that is. I looked over at my buddy. I said, you know what attention is? He said, I don't have a clue. I said, well, just follow me. Do what I do. Right? So we get our bags and we jump off that bus and we're running. And I did not hear the part. I don't think he said it, to be honest with you, that there were footprints, yellow footprints. I was the first one off the bus. All right. My buddy was right behind me, and I grabbed my bag. I knew what he said. Come to attention. Get off the bus. Come to attention. So I ran out there. My chest poked out like I knew what I was doing. I dropped my bags, and boy, I popped. Just like that. I mean, Barney Fife to a T. Right? I popped it, and I'm sitting there like that. I look over, and I feel my buddy come running up beside me. He popped it with me. And then the next thing I know, here comes everybody else that was in pre-boot camp with me, and they're all coming like that. And I'm sitting there like this, and I'm looking straight ahead. Of course, everybody else is kind of looking like this. All of a sudden, this other little bitty short guy comes walking as fast as he can. And I mean, he is walking fast, and he's walking straight at me. I can see him out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, please don't come to me. Please don't come to me. I'm straight up. I am pinching it. I've got it set. I am locked in. And the next thing I know, man, he comes up and gets right in my face, and he starts letting me have it. What are you doing standing right there? Why are you standing right there? I said, he told me to come to attention. Get off the bus and come to attention, sir. And he goes, on the yellow footprints. And I looked, and sure enough, right there were yellow footprints that showed you how to march. Boy, I just sat there. I walked over that footprint. Not talk about humbling in front of all those people. No fun to be humbled sometimes. But humbling sometimes is a learning lesson. So when I did get to boot camp, I sat in the back of the bus and I listened. And when the drill instructor the real drill instructor got on the bus and started hollering and telling us to get off and go to the right footprint, I got off the bus, I dropped my bags where it was, and I went over there, and I didn't make myself known. I got to the back of the back, and I just sat there like this, looking straight ahead and praying the whole time, please do not know my name. Pride cometh before the fall. I know we've all heard it. I know we've all dealt with it. I know we all know what it means. But what's the opposite? When God humbles us, what could happen? Go to verse 15. It says, on that day, Tyre will be forgotten for 70 years, the lifespan of one king. At the end of 70 years, what song says about the prostitutes will happen? Pick up your lyre, stroll through the city, prostitutes forgotten by men, play skillfully, sing many a song, and you will be thought of again. At the end of that 70 years, the Lord will do what? Restore. If you're an underliner, underline that. God will restore. Now, he uses the word prostitute here. And he's not using it in the term that we would think of. Right? He's not talking about a woman right here, a woman of the night. He is talking about someone who would sell their soul. Right? He's talking about Tyre. He's talking about how they sold out. Their pride got so out of control that they sold out who they were. And he says, God's going to restore them. He's going to restore them. Let me find it again. Tyre, and she will go back into business, prostituting herself with all the kingdoms of the world on the face of the earth. But look at what happens. Her whole mindset's changed, right? It's all changed now. Because it says, but her profits and wages will be dedicated to the Lord. It's no longer about them. And this is really good because he talks about how they were going to be wiped out, but yet a remnant is left of them. A remnant is left of them. If you don't believe it, you can go into Acts and look into Acts, because in Acts it talks about the people of Tyre and how a revival broke out among them and they were saved. And that was the fulfillment of this prophecy, of how that remnant become known as Christ followers and how they started back up. But yet it was different because they were redeemed. They were redeemed by God. God planned their destruction. God planned their destruction because of their sin of pride. But God, as he does always, he says, there's still a chance for you. There's still a chance that I can redeem you and pull you back. And that's the way it is with any sin in our lives. If we have a sin in our lives that has distracted us from serving God, from worshiping God, Maybe it is pride. Maybe it is something. Maybe it's something else that has got you away from where you should be and where you want to be. God says, I can still redeem you. I can still bring you back. I can still make you what I want to make you. So that is chapter 23. Next week, we'll look at chapter 24 and 25. So next week is going to be a little longer than it was tonight. Any questions? Any comments? All right. If not, we'll move to